welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm your host, Ian Carlos Crawford, and joining me today is my lovely co-host, the founder of Queer Media Matters, Fairy Gay Mother,
Dana Piccoli.
Hi, Dana.
Hey! Well, and we have two incredible guests, so let's get started on introducing them. He is an illustrator working in the entertainment industry focused on the horror genre. He is...
Hi, I'm Laz Marquez. Thanks for having me.
Hi.
And she's an award-winning YouTuber and pop culture writer.
Princess Weeks, hello. I'm so excited to be here.
Hi. Princess, I'm happy we have you on. I feel like you and I have been like emailing back and forth for like a year almost.
I know. It's a star-crossed, podcast romance. I'm excited that we finally made it together.
Here we are. And we're here to talk about Bring On the Night, which I think is a important season 7 episode. But before we get into it, Princess, do you want to start us off with giving us your Buffy origin story?
Sure. So actually, the first episode of Buffy that I ever saw was Hush when I was still in high school, and it terrified the crap out of me. I remember, I was so scared of it. Maybe it was even before high school. I was fairly young, and I had to finish watching it because the idea of it just traumatized me. I'm like, I just need to see her beat them. And then I was like, Buffy's too scary for me. I can't do it. And then between my sophomore and junior year of college, I was on Amazon, the dark site, and a Buffy the Vampire Slayer box set was on sale for like $40. And I was like, you know what? Let me just get it and, see what happens. And so I just binge DVD watched it on my computer, and I just watched all of Buffy during that summer, and I fell in love with it. I went on the Buffy sites and Buffy Tumblr every single day, and it was one of the best investments I ever made. I'm a Buffinato, or whatever we call I'm a Slayerette, whatever we call ourselves. That's what I am.
I love that. Laz, what's your... I don't know that I know yours, even though I feel like I should. What's your Buffy origin?
It's actually pretty simple. I saw it when it first aired on the WB back in the day. So I saw Welcome to the Hellmouth and fell in love with it immediately, and became obsessed with Sarah Michelle Gellar because I was a little gay boy who didn't realize it. And I wanted to be her. And I fell in love with the show. I was constantly drawing the characters. I had fan sites, the whole shebang.
I can't believe you started from the beginning. That's impressive. We don't hear that often on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're here to talk about Bring On the Night. I kind of talked to you guys about it earlier. Princess and Laz, you both kind of feel the same thing about season 7, right? Like, it felt like you both, not the biggest fans, but at the end of the day, I feel like we can all agree Buffy's still, even the stuff that's not that great is better than a lot of other TV, right?
Absolutely. I mean, Buffy has such a brilliant sense of continuity that there is a lot of good stuff in season 7. It just is between a lot of things that I personally do not care for in terms of just character decisions and stuff like that. But I would be remiss if I said that it was not still great supernatural television.
Yeah. And Laz, you kind of feel that, right?
Yeah, I think my point of view on season 7 is just that I like it because we've followed these characters for so long and fallen in love with them. But I do feel like a lot of the main character, the main Scooby Gang's narratives are a little bit redundant. They keep hitting the same kind of beats and the same, issues that they're having over and over without much resolve. So it becomes a little tedious for me to watch this particular season again. But there are some pretty incredible episodes and themes within this.
And something that I said to Laz and I mentioned earlier is that the big big issue I have with this season is that it is the most diverse season of Buffy. It's probably the most we ever see a bunch of different people of color on screen at the same time. Yeah. And I feel they're all kind of treated like trash. And it's either they're treated like trash by the main characters or by the narrative. And just as someone who was watching it and was like, all right, we're only going to have 2.5 Black characters this entire show, we get this diverse cast of women majority, and it's they're all kind of not great, and it just makes it kind of hard to enjoy it when Buffy is being mean to someone who's oh yeah, Spike killed my mother and I want revenge. And she's just like, that's really sucks for you, but this is my man though.
Season 7 really needed another half of the season to flesh out a lot of these storylines, I think, especially a lot of these the potential storylines, because we really don't get to know them. Like, I know we're supposed to care that they get killed, but I'm like, oh, I don't know them. So it felt like maybe another 4 or 5 episodes could have maybe brought more continuity to the story. But what I will say about what I enjoy about this episode is it's very full circle-y. We've got Drew. We have Drusilla coming back. We have Joyce in 2 different forms, dream form and first form. There's all these like moments that bring other pieces of the Buffy universe together. And I think that's one of the reasons I dig this episode.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Dana. Because this episode and the following episode, Showtime, do stick out to me when I think of season 7. I mean, Conversations with Dead People for me is that and Selfless are like the season 7 episodes, but this plot-wise are like 2 that I think of when I think of like, I forget the like, then after we get the Dawn episode, then after we get the like Willow turns into Warren up and we get a little bit of a slump. But these are like very actiony, very like plot heavy, but in like an exciting way. And I don't know if you all remember watching this, but I can remember season 7 and 6 and 5 are the ones that I remember watching live like the most. And I can remember being like excited that the previous episode ended with, meeting the monster. We didn't know, what the Turakan was. And it just felt it did feel final in a way. It felt like, oh yeah, this is definitely the final season, which I don't know if any of you remember. I don't think they actually announced it was the final season till around this time. Like there was that Entertainment Weekly cover with like Sam Gellar and it said like Buffy quits.
I can't remember what I had for dinner last night, Ian. Like I don't.
Also fair.
Although I did remember every Alanis Morissette lyric at the concert last night, so you're welcome.
I love that.
I do think you're right. I think it was around this time. I don't remember exactly which episode, but I know that we didn't go into this season expecting it to be the final one, and it was around the middle where things, were kind of revealed, which kind of makes sense because it does start to get very rushed at this point.
It does. But okay, so this episode opens with them once again cleaning up the living room, and I appreciate that we at least draw attention to it. Like Xander jokes, he's like, it's a loop, like the mummy hand. Because literally the previous episode opened with them cleaning up the house from Conversations with Dead People. It was like they were still working on getting everything back together. I think Xander had just redone the window. And then at the end of the episode, the Bringers, come through, smash everything. And these are the moments from season 7 that I do enjoy, because I do think these actors were like embodying these characters by this point. So like, the scenes of them like sitting around doing shit are fun because that's kind of the only moments we get of the characters getting able to like, they're not like having to worry about a fight or dying. It's like they're sitting around just like delivering lines of dialogue in a very them way. We get Anya. She's like, her and Dawn are doing research and she's like, nothing, cliff notes to nothing abridged. And we get really good like moments like that when they're all kind of like cleaning up from the fight or like doing a research. And also, I do think, Dana, I don't know if you'll agree with me, they're doing this very much to be like, look how bad they need Giles. They're kind of like reminding us, Giles isn't here and he needs to be, right?
Oh, Giles, always running off to do something. This very much feels like they're trying to make this episode very much about Andrew and Andrew's change of heart and his journey. And like that, we set that up really from the beginning. And you know what? I don't care.
Ditto.
That's fair. Yep. That's totally fair.
Like, I'm like, I care more about these the potentials. Like, I just, this Laz, where you're talking about redundancy, this is where it feels redundant to me.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on, Andrew in general, but I did want to touch upon just the scene as a whole. Some things that I noticed that I don't remember noticing when I was watching this live back when it aired. I kind of feel like season 7's a weird Apple ad. Have you guys noticed that? It's constantly on that laptop, and Willow's always misreading articles in the same way. Again, that weird like redundancy.
I will say, when I saw Buffy at school with that big MacBook, I'm like, oh, that looks really sleek. They should bring that back. I
thought. Yeah, they use Apple a lot, especially in this season. Yeah, I feel like, because season 6, it was like Willow was sometimes doing research, but also sometimes like, quote unquote, doing her magics. So we didn't get a lot of research, but this is like, there's a lot of scenes of her like sitting on that laptop. But I will go back to Andrew. I do enjoy Andrew, though. I understand the like, I know a lot of people don't enjoy his story here in season 7. I just think he's a nice breath of fresh air into the like Scooby Gang. And I enjoy Tom Lenk. I don't know.
Everyone enjoys Tom Lenk.
Yeah.
This isn't about Tom Lenk. I think, and I do enjoy Andrew in certain areas. It just, I feel a little bit maybe too much of the season 7 was focused on that character's redemption arc.
That's fair.
And I would have liked to have seen, more development between like other characters. That's all.
I also kind of, I question narratively, like, why he's there. I understand that they keep trying to tell us like he's on a redemption arc, but his character's treated so with such a lack of seriousness that like nothing pays off with his redemption.
And I also think because like so much of him, and I know that like his sexuality is one of those things that's like hinted at but not really explored in the series, because he just is written in such a campy way, it feels like they're just kind of making a joke out of him the entire time. Like there's so many things about him, like even when he and Xander are bonding over Wonder Woman, it's like, okay, we get it, he's like the comic book nerdy gay kid, we get it, but like he still was part of like an incel group like yesterday that tried to kill multiple women. Like I don't care that like he feels sad. And I think just now, especially the trio are like even grosser now in a 2021 context, that it's like I'm not interested that like he accidentally killed his best friend because a demon told him to. I'm like, sure, yeah, whatever. Like your QAnon demon tells you to kill your friend, and now you feel bad about it. I'm like, I don't care, Andrew.
There's I think what really zings this season for me too is the mental like terror and manipulation that happens to the characters, because bringing Joyce back just to speak, just to have the first speaking through her to manipulate Buffy, having Drusilla come back to manipulate Spike. These are things that they're not tangible. It's how do you fight it? They're not real.
And I think we talked about this in the previous episode. It is weird because in season 3, when we meet the first and it's Jenny Calendar trying to get Angel to kill himself, like Jenny touches him, she like puts her hands through his hair, and I don't know why they like redacted that and we're like, wait, it can't touch, because that makes it like you said, Dana, it's like, okay, now what, right? Like I don't know, they should have kept it that like, all right, yeah, it can touch you sometimes, or like maybe sometimes it's incorporeal, a word I learned from Buffy, but like I don't know, it's like, yeah, kind of, we add these monsters, right? We get the Turok Han and this episode and the next episode, and then we get Caleb, and it's like, then we get an army of the Turok Hans, and I don't know, I felt like meh. The first is kind of like, when you get down to it, a kind of meh villain for all the other villains. Buffy fought a hell god, like Glory was the villain to beat, and I think it was very hard to top Glory as a villain.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Once we got
but this is about things that they're not used to having to fight, and these are things that are insidious, and that we all as humans deal with, like these voices, these doubts, these frustrations, these anger. It's like almost in a way the most human of enemies that they are fighting, because it's like this thing that she can't just punch out its lights,
That's, you know what? I took what you were saying the wrong way. Yes, I do understand what you're saying, that it actually is like more insidious because she can't fight it. I do wish they had leaned, I know budget was probably an issue. I wish they had leaned into the cameo thing. Like, I wish we had gotten a zillion more people who had died in this season as the first. It's weird that Juliet Landau is kind of the only one that gets like to come back. But I will say, Ryan Houlihan said on an earlier episode, if you got Juliet Landau on set, you're going to use her a lot because she's very good. And like, that does make sense. I just wish we could have gotten, I go back to Lessons, the season premiere, which I think has one of the coolest scenes where all the big bads are talking to Spike. And it's cool for the audience, but like Spike doesn't know all those people. And it would have been cooler if something like that could happen to Buffy during the season, because that would be like literally bringing back all her monsters from her past and be more scary for her.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Or the person who I was waiting for, like if they had gotten Kendra back,
Yes.
they had gotten Bianca Lawson, like that would have been a character to torment Buffy with, because like that's one of her big failures, is letting another Slayer die. And like in a potential season where like the main anxiety is all of these potential Slayers that are going to die, why not bring back, the Slayer friend that she had that was killed by Drusilla? Like,
and we all know she looks exactly the same as she did.
Yeah,
exactly.
The 10 years previous. Nothing would have changed. It would have been perfect.
It's kind of interesting what you guys are saying as well, kind of jumping off of what everyone is saying. For me, the first was actually super effective as like an overarching villain. But Ian, to your point, like the non-corporeal aspect, I think hurts that villainry quite a lot, because obviously they have to rely on secondary characters to do the dirty work. But I do love the themes of like having to effectively fight the past to get to like a future, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because all of them are effectively like dealing with like the past demons. And I was also kind of curious to that, because I know at this point, I don't know that the writers have fully figured out what the first can or can't do. But I thought the way that they utilized Joyce in here, and I'm not sure if we're talking about this quite yet, so feel free to tell me to wait.
Yes, let's dig, because we get Joyce. It's right in the beginning too that Buffy asks, like, "Oh, hand me the Watcher's Codex," and it's Joyce. So go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, like so to begin with, this hit home, insanely for me, even on this rewatch, because I love season 6 and I can be a bit of a Debbie Downer sometimes. I will say, a few years ago, I lost my mom to breast cancer. So season 5 is a really difficult season for me to watch in general. So seeing Joyce come back, here in conversations with dead people, it hits home on a very different level for me personally. But what I thought was so interesting about how Joyce is utilized in conjunction with the first is, I don't know that we ever get full confirmation that it's the first. Because I feel like the first in every other instance reveals itself, It kind of like removes the mask when it's utilizing, someone else's face. But with Joyce, it's very nebulous. Like she kind of appears in dreams, which I'm not sure we see the first utilize outside of Joyce. But I was curious what you guys think.
That's a really good question, because is this just in Buffy's head? Or, is this the same Joyce that appears later in this dream that Buffy's having? Or is this the first? That is something good to chew on right there.
I was thinking about that too while I was watching it, because it just like there's a more tenderness to some of those earlier scenes, and when she's like, "You just evil is everywhere, dude. Like, stop worrying about it. Just chill." Like, there's definitely more of an affection, and I just wasn't sure if like, because I actually forgot if the first is able to just like do two things at once. I'm like, but it's being Drusilla, so can it be Drusilla and Joyce? Does it have like So I definitely wasn't sure, but I think that that's a good question that the narrative gives you, because Buffy has never really doesn't really work through trauma efficiently as a character. She just kind of keeps going through. So I wonder if like she doesn't have anyone to take care of her in that moment. So even in her mind manifesting her mommy, like I could relate to that. Like in that, you want your mom. So I could see it being both, like the first playing with her, but also just her own desires to be like held and taken care of in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually do always read this episode as like, because of that end we get, which we'll get to, which is like her being like, yeah, I'm gonna do the fucking thing, and her kind of, she's not there yet at the beginning of this episode, at the middle of this episode. I do think of the way you said, Princess. It's like, it's almost like her mind comforting her, because her mom isn't. Every other time it's like she's planting seeds, she's like telling them like, oh, it's going to be against you or whatever. And here she is kind of just being like, Buffy, you need to like relax. You need to calm down. Your evil's always been here. It's always going to be here. You fight all the evil. You need to take a nap, right? Like, I view it as that is her mind trying to comfort her in this like very extreme time of stress. And I don't know if anyone noticed, but also because I'm a huge fucking Buffy nerd, Joyce is wearing the same sweater she wore in the Faith two-parter in season 4, which she did wear.
God, Ian.
Which she did wear in season, I think, 5 as well. So I was wondering if that was almost like making it like, oh, look, and she's wearing a like sweater Buffy's seen her in before. Or if that's just like the department was like, well, we got this Joyce sweater sitting in the closet. Why don't we put her in that one?
They ran out of budget for new for Joyce.
But Dana, also another reason I know that is because they put out one Joyce figure and it's in that sweater.
I know exactly the sweater you're talking about. I do. So while this is happening with Buffy, then we go to once again the cave where poor Spike is being tortured by Drusilla, who is always a joy to see. Always a joy.
My favorite, one of my absolute favorite characters. Like, I love Drusilla. Like, she is one of like my big 3 of like evil vampire ladies who I would do anything for. Like her, Lorena, and Catherine Pierce. I'm like, I would do anything for you guys.
I love that you love her so much.
I do. I love that. The thing I love about the Buffy vampires, especially besides, our love interest, is that they're just like bad. Yeah. Like, I love that, like, Drusilla has such a tragic backstory, and, like, in any other franchise, she'd be, like, the forlorn, like, I'm so sad about my life, but because of the vampire rule, she's kind of like, I'm just a bad bitch now. Like, I'm just, the best. I'm just evil now. And I'm like, I respect that about you, girl.
No, Sparky Wonky.
Yeah. Just doing whatever. Kane. And I'm just like, in her accent, like, it's so bad, but so amazing. I'm like, I no notes. I love everything about it.
Perfection.
Can somebody actually recreate that clucking noise that she does? Because she does it like a million times in this episode.
She does do that weird noise. I can't do it. But I do think Juliet Landau, like, we talk about understanding the assignment a lot. I feel like she understood the assignment from like day one. With
absolutely. Yes. Chewing the scenery, devouring it, love it.
Right? And she stays. Like, I do wish her final appearance on Buffy hadn't been as, like, I wish we could have gotten Drusilla, I don't know, comes back, like, before we get into this, like,
I hate to break something to you, Ian. Drusilla is dead.
She is not dead.
What is death to a vampire? They're all dead, really.
But like, yeah, exactly. They're all dead, Dana. But yeah, no, I wish we could have gotten like she comes back to town for an episode, sees that Spike's, got his soul and hates it. But yeah, no, I enjoy this. I wish she had more to do, but I enjoy that if we're gonna watch, because these scenes would have been boring if it was just the first turning into Spike and Buffy again. So I'm glad that we at least got a little bit of Drusilla. And Spike, even like, he's like, you're not Drusilla, she was crazier. And she's like, oh, you're being naughty, daddy. Like, I love all that weird shit.
Well, there's only 2 people in this world, really, besides William the Bloody's mother that Spike has ever cared about, and that's Drusilla and Buffy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And like, even though they were evil vampires, yeah, Dana, you're right. He still did love her. Like, we can say that they were soulless, whatever, but like, he definitely cared about her.
Absolutely. I mean, I will say, like, not to get into shipping too early, but Spike and Drusilla is like OTP. Like, I was like, they're like, but they're bad for each other. And I'm like, I'm not here for morality. Yeah. I'm not. Who cares? Who cares? Like, did I say that they were healthy? No, I said that they are good.
Like, I'm not looking for that.
Don't put your heteronormative goodness onto me and what I enjoy, okay? I want to be bad. Make bad feel so good, okay?
Speaking of bad feeling so good, how about when Dawn gets to punch?
I love Dawn. Okay, so my Buffy hot take is I think Dawn is definitely ragged on too much. Sweet baby angel. And I think it's because for me, when I started watching Buffy, I knew that, like, the 2 things I knew about Buffy, 3 things: that she dates vampires, she has an annoying younger sister, and that Willow is a lesbian. So when you know all that and you start season 1, it's like, what, Willow wants to date a man? What's going on? Like, where is Dawn? So like for the entire time, I was just like, where is Dawn? Why isn't she here yet? Like, I was waiting for Michelle Trachtenberg.
This is music to Ian and my ears because we are Dawn fans. Laz, what about you? How do you feel about Dawn?
I did not like Dawn in seasons 5 and 6, but I will say she's one of my favorite characters in season 7. I think that they did such a good job at like elevating her character, maturing her a little bit. I love like her interactions with some of the other characters. Like I kind of want a spin-off of her and Anya together because I love their moments in this episode where they're just kind of like in sync with each other and kind of like teaming up a little bit.
Laz, I have some bad news for you.
Oh no.
Have you not seen past this episode?
Oh yeah, I have.
Okay. I'm like, I don't think that spin-off's going to be possible.
Ideally, Laz is saying they could have gotten a spin-off.
Yeah.
In a world where Anya didn't die in the finale.
In a what-if scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Definitely better than her macking out with friggin' Xander in that.
We're not going to talk about that. Absolutely not.
But yeah, I love Dawn.
But yeah, Dana and I we're like the Dawn defenders of Slayerfest 98. I don't think anyone else feels the same way we do, Dana, of the Dawn and of anyone else who co-hosts the podcast.
Well, bring me into the Trinity because I love Dawn. Like my favorite, this is my last Dawn thought, but my favorite Dawn scene is after she finds out what Spike did to Buffy. And she's like, if you ever touch my sister again, I'm going to light you on fire. And I was just like, she is my queen to be. I was like, I love you. I love you. Everyone is wrong.
Well, like, I am just a ball of light, a sentient ball of light, but I will kick your ass.
Well, and Laz makes a really good point because they really do. I think this season is when they finally I do think she was not written. I think they had trouble writing Dawn, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Michelle Trachtenberg was like a younger teen who looked older. So it was like weird when they would like dress her in season 5 as if she was like 11 and she looked older. And like, you know, give her like these like little kid things to do. And it's like, she looks like she's older than that. Even though like, I don't think Michelle Trachtenberg was, it's just she was taller and looked more mature than she was playing. And then I think like season 6, they had her crying a little too much. But I think season 7, they really got a handle on Michelle Trachtenberg's acting ability and like, oh, we need to like write Dawn as a little bit more likable and confident. She is the Slayer's sister. It would make like in Never Leave Me, the previous episode, I like that she's one of the few that does fight the Bringers and doesn't get knocked out. And that would make sense that like, you know, season 6, Buffy's like, I did fuck up. I should have been training you. And she's right. She should have been because it's your sister. She's going to always be encountering monsters all the time. You live on the Hellmouth. You are the Slayer. You should train her rather than just like sending her to her room. I like that version of Dawn.
I also think it was really beneficial that in the beginning of season 7, they really like focused on her in high school. I felt like the show was going somewhere really interesting with that, you know, like almost like a mirror to season 1. You know, hopefully, you know, with her making some friends and, you know, kind of seeing that balance out. And I kind of wish season 7 would have gone down that route a little bit more. Because I really did like almost like the agency that they gave Dawn that she didn't previously have because she was kind of like a nuisance, you know, for everybody.
Yeah, it's like the Watcher like she gets to do research, she gets to, you know, fight, and it's not like ridiculous. It's not like she's doing Slayer moves. It's just she can do a little bit of fighting, and I do think that helps bring her into the fold more so than like Buffy being like, "Dawn, go to your room," you know, like
it was her Watcher. It was her Watcher internship.
Yeah, and I actually do also enjoy Andrew and Dawn together. Dawn does get a lot of good scenes with certain characters this season. Because I agree with you, Laz. Her and Anya have good scenes, and her and Andrew have good scenes.
If by good scene you mean like her punching him, I totally agree.
Yeah. Well, even like she used to have great scenes with Spike too, like back when they were doing. Like she's a very good person for like the main or like newer characters to play off of, because she has this inherent awkwardness with everyone, and so she's like a good, like, to everyone else who's feeling awkward, they all attach to Dawn.
And she was always so good with Tara. Oh my god,
I know. If they had just given her like Sookie Stackhouse fairy powers, everything would have been fixed. I think that was the biggest thing, that they, like, she's this mystical key person, but then like they don't give her any powers, and nothing. I'm just like, that was a mistake.
Twice. All right, but hey, we've got to move to the next section here, because we finally, I'm like putting myself in the situation, but the Scoobies finally get Andrew to like cough up the location of where Spike is supposed to be being held, and they find a lot of stuff, but they also run into Principal Wood. Awkward.
Yes, I can remember watching this season thinking, oh, he's definitely going to be working for the first. And I kind of like the mystery that we build. And I'm very appreciative of the fact that, you know, we actually got a character of color who was very much useful and like a hero. He wasn't working for evil and he didn't die. And also he's gorgeous to look at. So there's also that. But I think him and Sarah act really well off each other.
Yes. And he also brings like a calmness and like like where there's so much like frenetic stuff happening with the Scoobies, he brings like a wise calmness, which I've always appreciated about him.
Yeah. And so while they're in the basement, things we need to, I think also Andrew and Xander have good chemistry. I'm not saying I ship it at all, but I think they have good chemistry. Like, when they talked about like Wonder Woman, and he's like, oh, it's like Wonder Woman issue, blah, blah, blah. And Xander's like, oh, the catacombs. And then he's like, oh, keep moving. Cause he gets annoyed that he agrees with Andrew. And I like that that's like kind of their relationship, is like, they're both big fucking nerds, but Xander's like, wait, I hate that I know what you're talking about. You're the nerd, not me, even though you're both the nerd. It's fine. They do address that Andrew murdered his best friend. We learn that Andrew's still in denial. And yeah, so Principal Wood and Buffy have to do their lying mental gymnastics. And Dawn says that they were putting a time capsule. And I love that she says, hello, teens of the future, kids today like Red Bull and Jackass. I thought that was like cute.
No, Robin Wood was a character that I was like very excited about when he appeared, because like I said before, like Buffy has had like a few black male characters, but none of them have been really like interesting enough to stick around. Like, it's like, who's her normie boyfriend again? What's his name?
Riley.
Yeah, Riley had like a black best friend, and then there was that like Mr.
Trick
character in season 2, but like Robin is like the one reoccurring black character that we really get for like a long time on the side of good. Yeah. And I do like the mystery as it gets set up. I think that DB Woodside is a great actor. He's so fun on Lucifer. And so like it's great to see him at this point in the show, where I think they actually have like a really good handle on his character. I think that as the show progressed this season, they kind of mess him up in certain ways that I won't start ranting about now, because then it'll take over. But I do like him at this point in the series a lot and how he's written.
All right. So then they go home. They bury the seal, which, as we know, does nothing.
I usually have to do that after like 2 beers.
Right.
So they go home and they decide that they want Willow to do, I put this in my notes, is it a locator spell for Spike or to find the first?
I believe it was to find the first, and that's why she gets possessed by the first.
Okay. So, which I don't know why they thought that would
They're like, hey, Willow, we know this has been kind of rough for you. Could you possibly try to find the worst evil that has ever eviled for us?
NBD, real quick.
Just real quick,
Anya and Dawn get knocked out by the magic, which happens, I feel like, in many episodes. The first inhabits her and says that you only make me stronger, which in the next episode we do learn is true when they visit Bill Joxa's eye, and it says that the Buffy being back is what made the first stronger. Buffy's immediately like, I gotta go find this thing, blah, blah, blah. Xander's like, you can't go alone. She opens the door, and who's there, Dana?
It's Giles saying, sorry to barge in. we have a slight apocalypse.
Which was a screenshot that I got a lot of mileage out of in the last few years on Twitter.
But it's not just Giles. It is also Kennedy, Molly, and Annabelle, potential slayers.
So
Kennedy.
I'm gonna quick Princess. What do you think of Kennedy?
It's like she's so annoying, and I hate it because I want to love her so much. Like we get this cool Mexican woman who's like rich and not a stereotype,
and
but
super gorgeous, right?
And so gorgeous, but instantly put my teeth on edge, and I was just like, I just had war flashbacks of like, oh no, it's her again.
Laz, what do you think of Kennedy?
I just don't understand her purpose of constructing a character that we know is going to, stick around and probably arguably be one of the more focal potentials, and write her in such an awful way. And sometimes I struggle. I'm like, is it the actress and her delivery, or is it the writing? But I think it's primarily the writing. She's always combative with everybody for no reason, seemingly half the time, and also just and Princess, you mentioned it. Like she's this rich girl, which already kind of puts me on edge because I grew up a poor Cuban kid, so it's hard enough for me to relate to a rich kid mentality, unless it's like written, to do so. But she just comes across so entitled and as if she deserves everything without working for it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like when she's like, when are we gonna get weapons? And like how she like even like things that I would like about her. And I think I didn't remember how much of it was just like me. When I first watched Buffy, I was like, all right, everyone hates Kennedy. I usually like female characters that everyone hates. And then I meet Kennedy and I'm like, oh no, this is not that case. Like it definitely is the writing. And I think that she's kind of an example of like, in a way, colorblind writing, because there's no real work in integrating of like what it might be like for her being like this Mexican woman in this very white space. She just kind of becomes like another Cordelia, except like not endearing. And I just find that to be really exhausting.
I think you're both totally spot on that. And I think in a way they also wanted to make her as opposite of Tara as possible, and knowing that they were going to eventually make her this love interest. And I agree. I think it's the writing, because I think Iari's, I think she's a good actress. And I think she kind of got, it's a tough situation to know that you're going to be the romantic interest of somebody whose romantic interest that a lot of people loved was brutally murdered. So I think that, I'm gonna go with the writing on this one. Sorry about that, Marty.
You know what? Dana, I thought we agreed on Kennedy because I do not hate Kennedy. I think that you are right that they definitely tried to just be like as opposite of Tara as we can possibly get, and that's why she is the way she is. But I did read that originally Tara was written to be more like that. Like they wanted Willow's girlfriend to be more like super outgoing. But then when Amber came in, they were all charmed by her. And they were like, oh no, let's make Tara more like her. Because they really liked Amber's like way of acting.
Which is funny because Amber's super outgoing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, and Iari, I think I said this before on the podcast, but we were on a panel together at Whedon Con a few years ago. And I remember we were talking about the diversity because the panel we were on was pretty diverse. And she turned to me, she put her hand on my shoulder and went, wait, were there any Latinos in Buffy? And I went, you? And she was like, oh, no. She was like, my character was supposed to be white and Jewish and rich from upstate New York. That was what they wrote as the description of my character. And I was like, oh, in the comics, they definitely do like lean into Kennedy being Hispanic. And she was like, oh, good. But so like, I loved that she asked me and I was like, isn't it you? Isn't that the answer?
Is this a trick question?
She's like, my character was Caucasian from the island of Caucasus. She's like, I don't.
It's kind of interesting, Ian, that you mentioned like outgoing as a quality trait that they were looking for, because she doesn't come across as somebody who's trying to be outgoing or somebody who's like extroverted. She comes across to me as like somebody who has no boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Like immediately she just has this like assumption, with Willow and, like normally I actually like those kind of characters who, want something and they're willing to be straightforward and, and they want, and they're willing to kind of go for it and have that outgoing charm to them. But yeah, again, with the writing, it just comes across as like, oh yeah, like, I'm just going to violate your boundaries and, be super inappropriate
How
without.
about I sleep in your room?
Yeah, don't hog the sheets. I'm like, girl, please. Like,
Girl.
I think another reason that I do like her is because she is the only potential that's useful.
This is true. This is absolutely true. And
and I
she's
mean,
an excellent
you know,
slayer.
like-
she's got the skills.
Yeah.
She has the moxie. I want to clear the air. Okay, I do not loathe Kennedy. I just she takes warming up to.
That's fair. And I will say a weird thing that I always say is that, so like, if you're in my orbit, if I date you or I live with you, usually I make you watch Buffy. And all of the straight men that I've lived with that I made watch Buffy loved Kennedy. Which I don't know what that says about her, but like I feel like the straight guys I get to watch would be like, yeah, but she's like a good slayer. Like she knows how to fight. She's like useful. The other girls are just screaming. Like she's the badass. And some of the time she's not wrong when she's like, I don't know, like I felt when she was like, do we get weapons? And Buffy was like, no. And she's like, we need weapons. And like, she's kind of right. Because even if you don't know how to fight, I mean, granted, they have like ridiculous axes. But like, even if you're not that much of a fighter, like I'm not a fighter, but I would still want a weapon if there's a monster that's like coming to eat me. I'd be like, just let me have a weapon so in case I can fight for myself.
And what I think is interesting about that stuff, to go to kind of like what Les is about being repetitive, I feel like that shouldn't have been a conversation. I feel like Buffy, the character that we know, would have been the first one to be like, yeah, we're going to give these teenage girls weapons. She's been a teenage slayer. Yeah. It doesn't make sense that she would be like the one who's like taking this weird, like, I don't know about that. Like it doesn't make sense for Buffy's character. And some of the choices that are made in season 7 with Buffy specifically feel like they're purposely trying to undermine her to like make the potentials be correct in ways that I don't think Buffy would organically act based on a character that we've known for like 6 seasons. And that's why it becomes annoying. Not because the characters are never correct, is that they make Buffy so blatantly wrong, but then we're spending so much time looking at Sarah Michelle Gellar having like her amazing sad face. And I'm like, I know, girl, this is bullshit, but like you really are, you're making bad choices. And it's just like, it's very frustrating as someone who like loves that character to see that the only way that they can make the newer characters really have any purpose is to tear Buffy down.
Yeah. Well, when Buffy gets burned out, it's tough. Mm-hmm. And it's like all the premises drop. And it's like, who is this person? But then I try to wonder to myself, when I kind of get burned out, am I sort of unrecognizable to the people that know me too? Just something I'm thinking about.
I mean, I will say, so as I said, like if I date someone or I live with someone, we watch Buffy. Every time I get to season 7, I feel differently about Buffy. Like I remember watching it live thinking everyone was constantly wrong and Buffy was always right. And then like, when I rewatched it with one ex, I was like, well, Buffy's making choices, like you said, Princess, that she wouldn't really. And then, like, the last time I watched it, I thought, wow, Buffy's being kind of a dickhead and, like, not budging and thinking she's always right. And this time around, I find myself going back and forth between both of being like, Buffy's being a little too ridiculous sometimes with, like, she makes the decisions. When we covered Selfless, I know people feel differently about the scene when, like, Xander and Willow are like, what about Angel? What about Spike? And she's like, it's always different. It's always different, but I have to make the choices. And they're like, why? And I kind of think they were right. Mm-hmm. Like this time around, I was like, yeah, why does Buffy get to be the one that says, no, we don't kill Spike, but we definitely kill Anya? Like that feels
I hate getting older,
fair.
Ian.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That really is what it is, Dane. But anyway, I also want to talk about Giles coming back because I feel like even though he's not like, he's not going to fight or whatever, it just feels like, oh, thank God Dad's back. Because he's like the only good dad. He's just, he cares about these the Scoobies who are like his children, especially Buffy. I hate that they don't get a hug.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love the fake out of like, is he or isn't he the first? I wish we had just ditched that.
It was weird. Sorry if I'm talking too much, but it just like this, again, like this season with Giles coming back is so, it starts off so excited because like, yes, dad is back, dad is home. But the energy between him and Buffy is so weird. It's like, it's so detached. It's so unpersonal. It's like, and this is the beginning of them being like in very weird situations for the rest of the season where I'm like, is Giles the bad guy now? Like, I don't understand. That awkward no hug beginning is like an indicator to me of like how off those two are going to be for the rest of season 7.
It's kind of like, all right, it's time to teach yourself, bitch, you know?
Yeah. It's all on you, girl. I'm like, since when, Dad? Since when? You were gone for one half a season, and now you don't want to help a girl out? It's so weird.
In all fairness, hold on, sorry. Like, in all fairness, he is like wrangling a bunch of like teenage girls at this point, and he's probably exhausted.
Oh yeah. Laz, how do you feel about Giles' return?
Well, I'm always up for Papa Giles to come back. I think that he grounds this.
I love Papa Giles, Laz. That's very cute.
I've been calling him that for like a while, and I don't know why, and it's kind of weird. But but yeah, like he as an actor and as a character, I think that he grounds the rest of our characters in a really beautiful way that, you know, I'm sure you guys spoke at length about, you know, seeing him return in season 6. And I think that it has the same effect here. But going back to what everyone has been saying about, you know, even like Buffy and Ian, what you were saying about every time watching this season, getting this sensation of, you know, kind of like seeing a different angle of it. I think that the issue with this season, and even with this moment of Buffy and Giles reconnecting, is that they're not making very strong choices character-wise in this season. It feels neither here nor there. Like, it feels like we have a really great scene with them like a little bit later where it's like, you know, they say, I miss you, and it's really beautiful, and I tear up, but they're also like super detached from each other. So like nothing that the characters are doing feel, again, just like a big swing. So it feels a little empty. And I hate feeling that way with Buffy and Giles, because I think that they're like such a big heart of the show in general.
I think what you're saying is right. I think if we had just like gotten a goddamn hug, because why? Like, even if, okay, so all the potentials walk in and interrupt their hug. Molly, Annabelle, and Kennedy, aka the cannon fodder, aside from Kennedy, they like interrupt their hug. But I still feel like, okay, after they walk by, then she would have been like, thank God Dad's here, and like given him a big hug. And he was always very warm with her. And it is weird that he's not. And you're right. I do like the scene we get later when they're walking down that one street we always see in Sunnydale. And they actually do, like, she's kind of, because she hasn't really vocalized it to Willow or Xander. And Giles is the one that she would be. Giles or Spike, weirdly, I think are the two she would be comfortable talking about how stressed out she is, right? Like, she's not going to tell Willow, Xander, or Dawn that, or even Anya. But it's like, oh yeah, Dad's here. I can tell him I haven't even realized what month it is. You know, this big bad is really stressing me out. But the family intimacy doesn't feel there for this. And I think it is because the writers are trying to do the like, oop, nope, we're going to see if he's the first. And we didn't need that. I feel like if he had just gotten there and been like, yeah, like, okay, we still got that cliffhanger of him almost being chopped, but he explained, yes, I encountered the Bringers, you know, I thought they killed that Watcher, which we later learned he didn't die. But like, if he had just told that story at the top, okay, fine. We know he's not dead. We don't need to like fake out of is he or isn't he the first. Because also it's ridiculous that he would not have touched a single thing in the house for that many episodes for them to be like, wait a minute, Giles hasn't touched us. Have we seen him touch anything? And it's like, he didn't like turn a doorknob. You know, like he didn't pick up food. He didn't like have tea. That's what Giles does.
The house is open concept now. No need for doorknobs.
But yeah, I'm glad they brought Giles back, and I am glad that he is there for the final, however, I think it's like 11 episodes now or 12. I'm glad that he is there because he, like, him and Faith coming back is important to the show. Like, I do feel like characters like that did need to come back for this to feel more final. Like, if we hadn't gotten him, it would have been like, like if he was only back for the last episode or the last like 2.
And he is there when she falls into the ground and ends up getting attacked by the Uber vamp.
Yeah. And he doesn't do anything. But anyway.
But he was there.
He was there to say, oh, Buffy. So Giles gives them, we get the Kennedy intro, which I actually kind of like, where she's like, this is a Slayer. Huh. And then Giles gives us this almost, I mean, for My Bloody Judy, Zach and I have been, talking a lot about horror. Laz just guested. And I've been thinking a lot about like the character in horror movies that like explain the rules. And it almost feels like that's what Giles is here to do. He tells us the first can't touch. He tells us, about the Uber vamps that he thought were a myth. He tells us he's basically there to like give us the rules for the rest of the season. And I don't feel like they thought these rules out until they wrote this episode. Like, I feel like they were like, oop, we got to have Giles say what's going on. Did it touch anything? No, it didn't touch anything. Let's just say that it can't. But I appreciate that at least now they know what they're like. Now they know what they're fighting, the rules, etc., and we're like good to go. We don't have to pretend it's a mystery because a lot of us viewers kind of already got there. And I mean, Buffy got there the previous episode, but we did need a watcher to explain it all.
Before we get into this next section, there's this line that Willow has that just cracks me up so much. When she's, because Willow, now that she's not doing the magics, she's doing the Googles. And she's looking up information on the first, and she goes, hey, here, the first.
Oh, yeah.
Bank of Delaware, sorry. That was so cute.
And so we get, like... Princess, I know you're going to have some thoughts on this because you talked about the Spuffy stuff. I don't love that she's like, well, this is why I need to get Spike. And it's like, is it? And like, even Anya's like, sure, he'll help if he's not crazy or killing people or dead or all of the above. Like, Anya, once again, per usual, is right. It feels like this would have been a moment, and I know we couldn't because they were on different networks, but if we're going to say we need Spike, that she would be like, also, I'm going to call Angel. Like... Right? Like, if we're doing that Spike's so important, Angel is just as strong as Spike and not as unhinged or recently murdery. So it feels like, even though they're exes, like, I mean, he comes in at the end. Like, I felt like this would have been a moment where she needs to call Angel and like, oh, whatever, like, help or fighters you have, can you come help me? And, I mean, this is a problem with a lot of comic books too, right? It's like, when the X-Men are like fighting a like world-ending thing, it's like, why aren't they just calling the Avengers and the Fantastic Four to help? I think about that a lot, and I know that like plot-wise that would be boring if we did that every time. But I don't know. I kept thinking of that in this scene because it's like, but like Anya said, like Spike just finished killing a bunch of people in Sunnydale and burying them in basements. Is he really that helpful right now? I don't know.
Spuffy is the enemy of my life. I mean, I'm gonna let Laz go first because I
am right there with you, Princess. I cannot stand Spuffy. I've never understood it. I am a huge Bangel fan.
Ooh.
Huge. That relationship to me is just a beautiful conglomeration of what love is in its dark and great and light times. But Spuffy, I just never understood. I also don't understand the choice, especially after season 6, which to me is unforgivable. Most of his actions and the way that pseudo romance played out. I don't understand why she is constantly making excuses for Spike to, one, be around. Also, I kind of feel like she gives him a lot more credit as this like incredible fighter who has all this stuff to offer, when I don't know that he does all that much except sit there and like fawn over her.
I hate it. The thing that I dislike about Spuffy is not that it's like dark or whatever, because I enjoyed it up until seeing Red and all of that stuff happening. I think that was a turning point where I was like, this character cannot come back from this in a romantic sense. If she cared about Spike, like, despite all of that, I would be fine with it. It's just this kind of like, we have to get him back. Yeah. Like, you were not this way with Angel. And and that's why it doesn't make sense to me. You weren't this way with Angel. You haven't even known Spike as long as you've known other people. Why are you just willing to put so many people's lives in danger to get him back? he is not that important right now. And it just never hits. And it's not even just because I dislike Buffy. It's because all of his actions as a character, I'm like, Spike needs to save himself. Like, I'm sorry. Like, he needs to be the one to get out of this on his own. Like, it shouldn't be your responsibility. And so many things that she does to protect Spike make everyone in the show turn against her. And I can't say that I think that they're wrong. And it really is infuriating to watch because I hate seeing her brought down and forced to be humbled because of her relationship to this man.
I mean, I like Spike, I do, but
as a character, he's great. I love Spike as a character. I do not like him as
that
Buffy's
is very
love interest.
fair. I will say now I'm like, oh god, everyone on Twitter is going to be so mad because us Buffy fans are very intense. Any episode where we have said remotely boo about Spike and Buffy, ooh, it's like threads of like people telling us why we're wrong.
I mean, they're allowed to like it. Like, there is a lot of interesting dynamics about that relationship. I just feel like I don't even feel like narratively the show gives them justice because they never really talk about their problems. They never really reconcile in any way that I think would be, if you like Buffy, like, how does this season make Buffy better than where it was before, other than that they say that they love each other? Like, how do they do the work is my question.
I think my biggest issue with their stuff this season is that, like, and I know, I mean, Princess, you did say that's kind of Buffy's forte, is being like, this thing happened, I'm not going to process the trauma, I'm going to keep going. But I wish they had paused, because they talk about their relationship, they talk about her using him, but they don't talk about the fact that he sexually assaulted her. And that's, for me, like, even if they had the discussion of what's it mean to have a soul, sure, and in context of the show, we have to believe that a soul is, you know, does X, Y, and Z to a person. I just feel like they needed to have that talk. And that's why I have trouble. This rewatch, I've had the most trouble getting by it. Because it's like, oh, we talked, like, Spike says, like, oh, you used me. And it's like, oh, but you sexually assaulted her. So, like, I don't know how you can even be like, I'm mad for you for using me. Because, like, ugh, I don't know. I just wish they had talked about it. And they don't. And that's, for me, I have trouble getting by it. Even if Buffy wants to blow past it, I feel like the audience then, well, the non-Buffy audience has trouble blowing past it the way Buffy does, right?
Especially because she tells all her friends, and they also can't get past it, because it's like, we know what he did to you. Like, how are we supposed to care about him when we haven't actually dealt with what happened? And that just makes it so hard, because I rewatched that episode a while ago because I was doing a writing about it. That scene is long. Yeah. It is very, very dark. It is not pulling any punches. Like, it is a brutal scene. And to ask us as the audience to get past that, you have to put in the work. And I don't think that they do.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I also kind of feel as though, and Princess, I think you said it beautifully, like, whoever loves Buffy and Spike together, good for you. Like, that is amazing. I think that if you can find something positive there that I haven't seen, great. But from my perspective, it comes across, at least in this season, as like the most negative aspects of codependence in a relationship ever, where they're constantly just like unhealthily leaning on each other for, you know, either weird slight validations or have, you know, expectations of the other, helping the other to achieve certain, you know, personal goals that aren't very well defined. And that makes me super uncomfortable as like a viewer and somebody who thinks about those kind of qualities in a relationship.
So, okay, we're going to move on from Spuffy, because we still got more episode. We do get the first moment of, and I do want to touch upon this, but I don't want to spend too much time on it, the Kennedy and Willow flirting. Because when I watched this live, I was like, yes, I want Willow to get laid by like a hot young top. When Kennedy's like, no, I can't sleep with that person. They start, oh, don't hog the sheets.
Okay, first of all, Willow is a switch, okay?
All right, yeah, but a switch can still get laid by a hot young top. Why not, Dana?
The people want to know.
There's nothing wrong with bottoming sometimes. But that's how I view their dynamic, is like, I think that's why I can like it more. Because I understand that people are very protective of Tara, because Tara was a wonderful character. And their relationship was one of the best ones on the show until Willow, you know, fucked it up. But I think there's nothing wrong with like, ooh, we're at the end of the world. ooh, I'm single. We're both queer. We're both hot. Let's fuck. Sure. Like, I don't think it's a forever love. I really view it as like, listen, let Willow get laid. It's the end of the world. Kennedy's hot. I've seen some people talking about, when they talk about them, the age difference, but they do later say Kennedy is the oldest of the potential. So I think we're supposed to assume she's like 19.
And I mean, Willow's about like 22.
Right.
Yeah. It's like we don't really know their ages anyway. It's like, that is not my concern.
Yeah, because like, yeah, even though they like character-wise age up the characters and they dress them more mature, they're still supposed to be, like you said, Dana.
They never did they ever graduate college? Or
they never did.
No, I think that they were supposed to be like juniors at this point.
Yeah, so they're like between 20 and 22 at most. So like, all right, that's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I can remember like loving that we got this like confident woman who's like clearly wants to hit it, and like, good for you is how I feel. But I feel that way a lot of times with people getting laid. I'm like, good for you, have fun, whatever. Like, I'm like fucking the mom from Mean Girls. Like, do you need anything? Condoms, a drink? Like,
agreed. There's nothing wrong with this point to me. They're hot.
Yeah, I think outside of my views on that character, I think I think if you can find love during an apocalypse, go for it.
And then Dawn says, like, does she want to eat? And Willow being like, what?
What? Oh, she does.
So we cut to Buffy and Giles. And I do like this, Buffy's just kind of like, God, I'm fucking beat. The thing I do appreciate about this season is it does what season 5 did, where it's like, Buffy is having a rough fucking year, but it's still not as depressing as season 6. Like, we don't veer into too much of like the characters, every one of them, every episode has a scene crying. Mm-hmm. But we are still showing like, look at how stressed she is. She has had quite the year. She's had, last year was terrible. This year's being kind of rough on her. And now there's like the impending apocalypse, which is starting earlier in the season than usual for Buffy. And Sarah Michelle Gellar and Anthony Stewart Head, their dynamic is, they know what their dynamic is, what their characters' dynamics are at this point in the show, and they do it well. I like this conversation. I like seeing Buffy be able to like metaphorically let her hair down or whatever. I just, again, like, she falls in that hole and Giles doesn't do shit, and it's kind of annoying. So they go to the tree, the like Christmas tree lot where she first encountered them, the first in season 3. She falls through the Turok-Han, pretty much immediately kicks her ass. And I can remember the way I felt watching the Turok-Han just snap the steak that she put in him and being like, no big deal. And this for me felt at the time like, oh, we're like almost at a glory level fight where she is outmatched because this monster is stronger than her. And I do think that ups the stakes for Buffy, right? Because every other monster, the mayor was kind of like not there until he turned into the big monster. And then she blew it up in 5 seconds. So it's no big deal. Adam, the incels, blah. And like, Angelus, it was more, ooh, this is a man she loves, but it was still a monster she could kill. So I like putting a monster where it's like, oh shit, she's not sure how to kill this right there with like a fight. And we're like, not even at the end of the episode. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think of the fight here? Laz, what'd you think?
Yeah, I think the Turok-Hans definitely present like a really strong threat to Buffy right off the bat. They look a little silly for, but it's, it's the time period. But I do like the inclusion of them, and I kind of love how parts of this episode really change up the status quo of what we knew with Buffy, because that's something like when I first saw it, I was so enamored by with this season and specifically with this episode, where everything's being switched up and you have all these new introductions and characters and people coming back, and suddenly like this uber vamp is really pretty freaking scary.
I would agree. Like, it's hard seeing her get like beaten that badly. Like, when they find her body, I like gasped because it's so rare to see Buffy beaten that way. And I feel so strongly for her. And like when she goes to stake it and it doesn't die, I was like, oh, like, I was like, oh no, that's a moment. Like,
right. All the rules have changed.
Yeah. It was so well done. And Sarah Michelle Gellar just eats the role of Buffy. Like, she just is so good at it. And I think I felt the terror in that moment. And I felt like, and it was definitely like a game changer. It is a very, very great fight scene because it's like Buffy could die. And the fact that she doesn't die just proves that the First has a plan for her. And that's the most terrifying thing. That, like, she's only alive right now because right now she hasn't finished doing what needs to be done. It is a lot to see.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So they get back home. And this is kind of the first time we see the rift with Giles and Buffy with how they want to handle the potentials, right? Because Buffy's like, oh, you know, they're all in the kitchen eating. It's the morning. And Giles is like, oh, we should discuss this in private. And Buffy is like, no, let them hear. They should hear what we're going to talk about. And I can kind of see both points, honestly. Like, I can see being like, no, they're not real slayers. It's just going to scare them. But Buffy being like, yeah, but like, this is what's happening. Avoiding it's not going to make it less scary. And then the other part of me is like, they should have just had Kennedy stay because she's the only competent one and let the other two leave. But right, wouldn't you guys agree? That's kind of like, that's the start of like Giles and Buffy's like whatever riff that they have until the end of the season.
In a sense, yes. Because I see what you mean now when you put it, like, yeah, they have different styles of how they want to educate the Slayers, which again feels just so weird because I feel like, didn't we already do this? Like, didn't we already deal with like the difference in their methods? Like, it's interesting because I feel like it's a torn between, now I know it's the finale, but like what it must have felt like working on it, because why is Giles regressing to who he was back in season 1 and 2? Like, why is he like not giving them the authority? Like, he had teenage slayers before. He had a teenager who just wanted to go to prom but had to fight instead because it was an apocalypse. Like, why is he regressing as a character to do this? It just feels very sus. Sorry to be a negative Nancy. Fair. I'm not trying to be like this.
No, you make good points.
Then what happens, Dana? Where do we go after that?
Is this when Annabelle runs away? No? Wait.
No. Oh, then this is when we get to Buffy at school.
Oh, right. This is when Buffy's looking up evil on the computer.
So cute. Yeah. I love her. She's so cute.
Right. I feel like that does track for Buffy, that she'd be very bad at doing the research.
We all have our skills. Yeah. And we have our things that we don't excel at.
That's how my dad looks up things. Like, just Googles like one word.
But she and Principal Wood have that back and forth that they're both lying because they both have like their thing that they're doing behind each other's backs, which is actually the same thing. Uh-oh.
Is it weird for me to say that I find in this season and this episode, I find that when Buffy is bouncing off of Principal Wood, she seems the most Buffy and in her element.
I can see that. Mm-hmm. I mean, their scenes are very good together. I think those actors do well with each other.
Yeah, she just seems like that fun, spunky Buffy comes back a little bit, and maybe it is because they have such good chemistry, but it seems like Sarah Michelle Gellar is having a lot of fun with it as well.
Yeah, I can see that. Also, don't we get another... Oh, no, we don't. Not here. Because then we cut to Spike being tortured by
getting his ass kicked, yeah. And he's like, no, love, you're not Drusilla. And she's like, oh, Daddy, I'm so disappointed in you.
Dana, I love your Drusilla.
That's actually... I do a much better Drusilla. I'm not thinking about it right now.
I believe it.
So then we cut to Buffy, and she's in her bathroom, and she's looking at the bruises under her blazer. And her mom appears, and like, I get such, I don't know, I think it's because I love these characters so much, but like seeing Joyce like really hurts my heart. Like, I'm like, like this was such a traumatic thing for Buffy, and like, I don't know, I get like teary-eyed because she doesn't feel like the First, because she's not being mean, she's just being like her mom. She's just being a mom, right? She's like, you gotta rest, you gotta sleep, like, and Joyce is so good at like the warm mom feeling. And, you know, Joyce wasn't always that mother either, but of course that's where Buffy's brain goes to like, man, I wish my mom were here, of like, she's going through an apocalypse. She kind of is like, isn't sure what to do. There's all these extra girls living in her house. So it makes sense that she would be dreaming about her mother comforting her. Like, I think that really does track. And again, this is why I do think it's a dream and not the first, because she does wake up at her desk, which is like me at work. And she's like, what are we talking about? What's going on? And the kid's like, all right, I'm leaving.
That poor Roger.
Yeah.
She's like, I knew that.
Which leads me to one of my favorite lines. And I was like, oh man, I'm getting old. Where she's like, I'm hip. You know, I can relate
to the kids. Yeah, that was so good.
I'm like, that's pretty much me these days.
Oh my God. I was going to say, that is me on Twitter increasingly every day.
I have like friends I text to be like, what are they talking about on Twitter? So then we cut back to the Summers house. Xander is making a Signs reference about, oh, we just got to trap it in the pantry. And Willow's like, let's ease up on the whole jokes in the face of evil thing. She tells the potentials they'll be okay or better. That's their guarantee. And I wanted to talk about this scene with her and Buffy, because they're both doing some really good acting here, I think, because she apologizes for like not being able to help. And Buffy's clearly exhausted. I mean, that's been the whole thing, right? She said she hasn't gotten sleep. She's tired. She's very bad at hiding, that she is a little annoyed. And for me, this is another way the magic is drugs metaphor doesn't work, because you're not annoyed at your friend because they have an addiction and their addiction could save the world, right? Like that's why the metaphor falls apart to me, because it's like, I understand why she would be annoyed, because if Willow did, it would be very helpful to saving the world. But because we've boxed it into like a metaphor of addiction, we have to have Buffy be more okay with it. But I think they're both doing good acting, because like Willow's apologizing. She does her little word vomit where she's like, and it was all grr and I was all and Buffy's she's like smiling, but clearly exhausted, and just trying to be like, it's fine, Willow. I don't want to have this discussion.
Oh God, I have been this Willow in my life too many times with like the Buffys in my life.
Word.
We get Andrew. He's asking to be untied. He has a zillion excuses. And he's like, you know, I know you think of me as Dr. Doom, but, I love that Xander mouths that he doesn't know what he's talking about to Buffy.
He's like, I have no idea. I was like, you do. Don't pretend.
Like, you do. And then we quickly learn that Annabelle has run off.
Annabelle, we hardly knew ye.
Yeah.
Nothing of quality was lost.
I'm still unclear. Why does Annabelle run off? Is it just because she's like, oh shit, I'm in too deep, or like, I want to kill that vamp? Like, I'm never like quite sure like what the deal is.
Right, because if you're scared, it feels like you don't run towards the evil.
Right. like directly into its arms. Like,
like, oh, there you are. I was scared of running into you. Now here we are. Come choke me. Like,
it also feels like if you're gonna like go with some strange man from England all the way to, you know, California, like a little conversation that you just had is gonna scare you off that bad. Like,
right.
Makes no sense.
Well,
maybe she was you know what? Maybe she was going to Disneyland. Maybe she's like, I'm in California. I'm going to make the best of this.
That's where she was running.
It's the end of the world. Let's just go to Disney real quick. So Annabelle is quickly murdered. We see her necklace fall to the ground. Buffy runs off to try to find Annabelle. And this is pretty rough to watch. Buffy gets decimated by the Turrican. And it like throws her through a freaking wall that like collapses on her. And while I love an evil that Buffy is outmatched by, because, you know, she's our hero, we know she'll overcome it, it still is brutal to watch like your hero get that beat up, I think. But I will say the whole end here, these like last 10 minutes are fantastic. Xander, Willow, and Giles, like they uncover the rubble, and even they're like, oh God, because a thing I thought about is how even in season 5, when she would get beat up, we never saw her bloodied. And this is like one of the first Buffy times on the show where she's like very bloody. You know, she's got like the cut on her face, on her eyebrow, like there's like bruises and blood. So that like, I almost feel like they did that on purpose. It's like, oh, we didn't usually bloody her. Let's bloody her up so that we know this is like a very bad fight. And she very much lost. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely like I noticed. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but like I noticed that like, oh shit, she's bloody. We don't get a bloody Buffy.
No, it definitely did feel like, oh, stakes, like they upped the stakes, and like Josh talking about she has internal bleeding. I'm like, but she has super healing. I was like, And I know you mentioned how you feel like the before scene is like the bridge between like the beginning of that gap. I think that this scene of like Giles and all of them behind her back talking about how bruised up she is, of like taking care of her. I think that's the actual divide, because then she's like, oh, they see me as a tool, as the Slayer Buffy. And like, I have to prioritize being that over being Buffy Summers. And I think this is the part where like that switch gets turned, where she's like, it's all on me because I am the plan. So I think this is the moment where Buffy realizes that like, it's all on me. So I have to be Uber leader.
That's fair. Yeah. So before we do get to that scene, we do cut one more time to Drusilla taunting Spike. I do like the bit of like when she asks him, do you know why you're alive? And he's like, I never figured you for existential thought because you hated Paris. I thought that was like cute. And then we do get the like, what makes you think you'll ever be good in this world? And he says she does. She believes in me. Because in the previous episode, she did explicitly say, I believe in you, Spike. And hands up, I did feel like, oh, like, I don't know, that shit, even though I get annoyed at like the problematic stuff, I fall for it. Not gonna lie, I fall for it.
So she comes down and she gives the first big inspirational speech of season 7, and basically like, yeah, we're probably gonna die, but like we got to get our shit together, and this is all we got to do. We're declaring war.
And now we're gonna have a reading of said speech. This is from what we did over the summer when Dana and a few other of our co-hosts had to be bothered by me to do a bunch of videos. But it's a reading of Buffy's final speech, starring me, Anthony Oliveira, Summer Bishel from The Magicians, Angela Rockstar from Big Brother, Adam Sass, Dana, Drag Queen Joe Mama, Zachary Patton Garcia, Alastair Garcia Patton, LaToya Ferguson, Drag Race UK's Crystal, and Tom Lenk. I'm beyond tired. I'm beyond scared.
I am standing on the mouth of hell.
And it is gonna swallow me whole. And it'll choke on me.
We're not ready. They're not ready.
They think we're gonna wait for the end to come, like we always do. I'm done waiting.
They want an apocalypse? We'll give them one.
Anyone else who wants to run? Do it now.
Because we just became an army.
We just declared war.
From now on, we won't just face our worst fears. We will seek them out. We will hunt them down, and we will cut out their hearts one by one until the first shows itself for what it really is. And I'll kill it myself.
There's only one thing on this earth more powerful than evil, and that's us.
Any questions?
Okay, so one, I loved doing that reading over the summer.
All-star cast.
It was one of my favorites that we did, Dana. And two, I cried when I watched this speech earlier today. It makes me cry every fucking time. And I'm gonna like,
it's very good.
I gotta say, like, I've said this many times on this podcast, but like, Buffy is my hero. Like, she is my favorite fictional character. There's a reason why. And it's, I don't know, shit like this when Buffy is like completely beaten down and she's like, no, fuck you. I'm still gonna win. I'm still gonna fight. Like, it might be messy, but we're still gonna fight. And that's like, that's why I love her. That's why Buffy Summers is like my forever hero, because this shit is inspirational, and it is. And like her saying like, you know, it's going to swallow me whole and it's going to choke on me. I think it's such a good line that like, all right, you're going to try to kill me. Well, I'm going to make it as worse as like shitty for you as possible while you're trying to kill me.
A jagged little pill reference, perhaps.
Dana just saw Alanis Morissette.
I just saw.
I'm super jealous, by the way.
It was so good, you guys.
It sounds amazing.
Garbage.
I'm jealous.
Garbage opened up, Cat Power opened up, and then Garbage played, and then Alanis Morissette. And
what a lineup.
Was epic.
That is, yeah, I'm jealous AF.
But, so, Laz, what do you think of this speech?
It's so beautiful and really well written. I think it's also a really big testament to Sarah Michelle Gellar's ability to take the material and elevate it to crazy heights. There's that vulnerability in her voice at moments, and then she kind of crescendos to empowerment and strength, and it's just it leaves you speechless while you're watching it and with tears in your eyes.
Laz, I got like teary just listening to you describe it. That's how much I love it. Princess, how do you feel about this end speech?
I echo all of that. I think that it shows why Buffy is so inspiring, so awesome as a character. Like, I agree with everything said about Buffy. She's one of my heroes, her along with Xena. Like, they're just people who make me feel inspired by their own tenacity and desire to keep moving forward, even at the expense of their own happiness, their own pain. Like, Buffy deserves to rest, but she can't because she knows she's the only one who can do all of this. And all I want to do is give her the biggest hug, honestly.
She does deserve to rest. You're right. She really fucking does.
She needs to sleep.
God, give her a season 7 episode where like she gets a really long good night's rest. Dana, how do you feel about this? Because I love it.
Oh, I mean, come on. It's a fantastic monologue. I really wish I would have done it in college. I probably would have gotten a role in some sort of musical with that.
You would have killed it. I mean, you did deliver part of it for us.
I know.
Even the music that plays, like, it's like very quiet, but even the music that's playing, like, as she starts off with like, I'm beyond tired, but then goes into like, but we're gonna fucking like demolish these monsters, and the music swells and like the close-ups on everyone's faces. Yeah. I don't know. It just perfect. Love it. And now for a quick break. Folks, do you love movies? The good ones? Even the bad ones everyone told you not to like? It sounds like Super Yaki is the place for you. The team at Super Yaki loves movies. So much so they've dedicated every waking moment of their life to bringing you top quality merchandise to showcase your love for them. From super soft t-shirts celebrating the 20th anniversary of the cinematic masterpiece Josie and the Pussycats, to comfy sweatshirts made for the brave members of the Movies by Yourself Club. They even have pins of some of your favorite directors, like Sofia Coppola and Jordan Peele. Super Yaki joyously brings you tangible love letters to movies and filmmakers that you can wear with pride. Plus, the team at Super Yaki screen prints all their apparel using eco-friendly, 100% water-based inks, and ships with compostable poly mailers for an environmentally friendly alternative to online shopping. And as a special gift to you, listeners can save 10% on their order with the code SUPERSlayerFest, all caps, no spaces, at checkout. If the spirit moves you, find them at superyaki.com. Let's watch more movies, y'all. And now, for a fashion roundup, we have Season 7 costume designer Matt Van Dyne. Hello, Matt!
Hi, Ian! Hi, everyone! Hi!
So, what do you have for us for Season 7's Bring On the Night?
Well, okay, in this episode, this was interesting because I don't always have scripts for episodes, but I did have a script for this episode. And as I'm looking through my script, of course, I would make notes in production meetings. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I don't have that many notes in the script. It's kind of
really
funny. It's really kind of funny because I'm going, well, wait a minute. And I watched the episode and I thought, well, I guess, it was just kind of a continuation of what we were doing, and I did make a reference to when Spike appears as the first, when he's talking to Spike, that there's a note in the script that says, in all his William the Bloody glory. So that meant bringing back the leather coat. For some reason, I have a note, bring back the leather coat. Then I noticed that when Andrew, I always laugh at, is Tom Lenk, is that his name?
Yeah.
Which I thought he was adorable.
He's a sweetheart.
Oh, he's a good guy. But when he gets slapped around, and he's funny, that guy has good comic timing.
He does,
He really does. He has great comic timing. And but I thought, oh well, they throw water on him. So in my notes, I had water, elements. So we need multiples for that. So so we did have another shirt ready for him, so just in case. And then I was looking at what to me was really significant about this episode is the entrance of the three young girls who are the eventually potentials or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, one doesn't quite make it too far, does she?
Right.
Which is funny in the notes. That cross plays a big part in the script, that she wears a cross and all you see, is, but I did have a note about those crosses. We bought 4 silver crosses at the time. And they were for the character Annabelle. And in the notes, it says that she is, or like in the script, it says that she is a snob, a Brit, kind of snobby, kind of slick, chic. Mm-hmm. So we just put her in a simple top, as I recall. Yeah. So, but with the crosses, there were 4 crosses that cost the crosses for a total of $68.75. That was funny. And they came from a jeweler that we used named Maya, that we used her quite often. And but then the other 2 girls, that was, the introduction of Molly and
Kennedy.
Yeah. I always call her by her real name. That's funny. But yeah, with Molly, it says in the script, which I don't think it says pigtails, a miniskirt, and a lunchbox or something for her purse. Well, I don't think we did any of that. Well, maybe the miniskirt, maybe that.
Yeah, she wears a miniskirt.
A little miniskirt, yeah. But that little top that we bought that says kills germs, that came from a little shop on Melrose Avenue called Fornarina was the name of it. And that little top was kind of pricey. It was $330.
Holy crap.
That was a lot of money to spend at the time. But I thought, I'm sure Terry or Lorna, the shopper, brought it and Terry approved it or Terry saw it. I'm not sure. But I thought, well, that's very funny. Kills germs. I thought that's very funny. That sounds like Terry's wonderful sense of humor. So I do recall, but I do remember that top. I remember that. And then Kennedy, it just says that she is tough and wry. That's all it says. So,
I was going to ask what the notes were on Kennedy. I really wanted to know.
That was it. Yeah, tough and wry. So I laughed when I was looking at the episode, and I went, "Oh, for Ian, another denim jacket."
Yep.
There's a denim
jacket. I'm a fan.
Yes, another denim jacket. So I think we built more on Kennedy. I think, I probably had more opportunity to do that later because once Terry left, but the groundwork was being laid there, tough and wry. So there she is. And then Giles enters the scene in his corduroy coat, which I remember that coat very well. And it was a beautiful coat, from Neiman Marcus, and it was a John Varvatos coat. Oh. And it was about, I think it was around $900 at the time. And
I really love the idea of Giles dressing this fashionably.
Didn't he look good? I thought
he did, yeah.
Really looked nice, especially after everybody else has been trashed, at the council. And I was watching that scene with the council, and I was trying to remember that, but I don't remember it. And
that scene, that's so funny. So that scene is actually in the previous episode.
It is. Okay.
Yeah. It's the end of.
That's right. It is. That's right. That's right. The previous episode. That's right. It leads into this. That's right. So but I don't remember much about that. But there was an actor in that scene that I went, oh, I know that guy from Ozark. And I thought, I worked with him, and I don't remember that. And I love him in that. So anyway,
that's funny.
But I thought, but I'll often run into people, like on camera, and then a light bulb goes off 100 years later, and I go, oh yeah, I remember him.
That's funny.
but then so with Buffy, I made a note of the beige pea coat that she wears, and that was from Barney's, New York, and that was pretty pricey. That was an $800 coat. And we had multiples of that. And that little scarf that she wears later when she enters, after getting trashed around. That little cream scarf. That was just a little cheap scarf, but it looked so pretty. It was a $30 scarf that she wore.
Okay.
And then the black. I don't remember much about the black that had the black top that had the little insert with the netting or whatever. I don't remember much about that. But later on, the turtlenecks, that was from Saks Fifth Avenue. I remember that. And the charcoal sweater that she wore that I thought was so pretty, that had the kind of wrap thing at the neck. That's a Vince sweater, and that wasn't that expensive, but I thought it photographed really well. And then I had in my notes in the script, I wrote for the last scene.
I was waiting for you to talk about this last scene.
I'm trying to remember why, if I made this reference, it's scene 39, interior Summer's home, Buffy's room, night. It says Buffy's room. Buffy enters. I wrote Buffy new, which to me is a sign. Well, that's a new outfit, and that's a velour. I'm sure I don't have a reference to it, but I'm sure that's the velour outfit. She loved Juicy Couture.
I remembered you telling me that, and I wanted you to know that I was anticipating you telling me it was Juicy Couture. That
has to be a Juicy Couture, little sweatsuit. So I'm sure of it. I didn't have that in the notes, but I'm almost, I'd say 99.9% sure that's what.
Because you said Sarah really liked that brand.
Oh, she
right?
loved that brand. Yes, and it was comfy, and it was. I think, I don't know, she liked it because it was very comfortable at the time. I remember that. So, and they were stylish at the time. It's very stylish, They were,
yeah.
And we had a good relationship with the people at Juicy. We would get them directly from them. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but yeah. So that episode, that's kind of what I recall the most of about that episode. But I was going to say too, I wanted to add to credit to Terry Dressback, who, like I said, at this time was probably leaving the show. I love the palette of the show. I just always thought everything, nothing is jarring, nothing, as I said, and you brought up earlier, I think a lot of these things could be worn today.
Yeah.
And I love that it has a kind of timeless feel to it. And that the clothing, certainly the palette of the colors, emphasize the darkness and the tone of the story. And I really like that about it. And I did have one little other note, just as a side note about DB Wood. I just always have to say, nobody can wear a suit better than DB. DB,
that man is gorgeous.
Yes. I just thought he was and is an incredible person, and an incredible person to dress. I always thought he was. And I remember I had his Fossenobs shirt. It was a blue shirt that came from Nordstrom's. It cost $98. I thought, oh, okay. Well, I have a note on that. But that's I'm sure his suits we had from before, and we just used, But he just always looks so sharp. And anything he wears, he just always did.
Yeah, he's very handsome and
pleasure to dress. Yeah, he really.
Oh, I love hearing that.
Yes, he was, and a nice person. And as I said before, I think I worked with him on a pilot previous to Buffy, so I had experience with him on another show. It was a show I had done with Sally Field. As I recall, he was in that show, I think, as well. So,
all right.
But yeah, so yeah, bring on the night.
What'd you think of that end speech? Was that the first time you'd seen it in a while?
Yes, I loved it. It's like
she delivers, right?
Yeah, oh my God, as only she can, which she does later in the final episode, or toward the final episode, I guess it is. Like when she said,
no, you're right. It's the final episode.
It's the final episode when she said, when she tells everybody to rise up. And, Sarah, incredible. And that's hard to do. That's, she was so young at the time, but she certainly had it all together. She really, really did.
Yeah.
I love that nothing in the way of costuming ever takes away from the story, and that's what I think good costuming is. I really do.
And that's why you're a good costumer, Matt.
Well, I don't know about that. But thank you. I appreciate that. I've worked with some really wonderful people and learned a lot along the way. So, yeah,
cool.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, though.
Thanks for popping in to give us a little fashion roundup,
Thank
Matt.
you
I appreciate
so much. Okay. Goodbye.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Take care.
Bye. All right. Now that we're at the end, favorite outfit, Princess?
I would have to say I love Drusilla's outfit. And I especially love that she always has her like weird French tip manicure. That's one of my favorite things. But my favorite piece of an outfit was definitely Buffy's zipper sleeve blazer. That was amazing. I want that. She looked amazing in it. Those are my favorite outfits.
All right. Laz?
I'm glad that I decided for my third option because Princess, you and I are totally in sync here.
I love you.
But my favorite is, it's so random, but Anya's weird tassel shirt.
I do like that.
It was kind of like an orangey tassel shirt. It looked a little cowboy. I like that one for some odd reason. But the other two were kind of my first options.
All right. Dana, what was your favorite outfit?
I'm going to go with Molly's outfit. The whole thing. It's like a peachy faux fur jacket. She's got a shirt, like a tank top that says like kills germs, and a kind of kilt, a short kilt. I would have worn this entire outfit in 1999.
Dana, I often think how we would have been best friends as teens if we had met. I think my favorite outfit is Buffy. I liked the outfit she's wearing when they're walking down that one street in Sunnydale. Her like beige blazer with like the little like scarf and the jeans. I think she looks very cute there. We all probably are going to have the same one, but favorite scene, Laz?
Giles and Buffy walking to the Christmas tree lot.
Okay.
I thought it was like the first moment in this episode that like I just felt like the show was getting back to the character work that I enjoyed. It didn't really pay off, but it did make me want to cry.
Princess?
I would have to say it's when the second Joyce Buffy scene, because I think that's when Buffy lets herself down and is a little bit more vulnerable with this version of her mom, and I just find it very touching because I miss Joyce so much, and I also think Joyce's hair looks amazing in all of these sequences. So,
Dana, favorite scene?
Well, as a scenery chewer myself, anything with Juliet Landau as Drusilla, but got to be that monologue at the end.
Okay, yeah, same monologue. I can't believe, Princess and Laz, you didn't pick
well, we knew
the monologue.
You were going to pick the monologue, so it's like I'll take the monologue.
That's fair. What grade do you give the episode, Princess?
I would say it's a solid like B+ episode. I think that it sets up a lot of really great stuff. Even the stuff that I dislike or things that in like a fuller context, they're not bad for what it is. I think that you see the best and worst of this season sort of almost synthesized into this. There's going to be a lot of big emotional moments and then a lot of things that are going to make you very frustrated. But I think it all comes together in a fairly good way. So I think it's a solid B+ episode of Buffy.
All right. Dana, what grade do you give it?
I'm going to give it a B+. It would have gotten a B if it hadn't been for that excellent monologue at the end. So B+.
Laz?
I'm going to go with a B. I was going to give it a B-, but again, that Dana, to your point, that monologue just bumped up that grade.
I give it a B+, and that I love a big ending, and that for me, granted it's Buffy got beat up, but that speech feels like such a big ending that it makes the episode a B+, because I think of that speech often like that. I know that the joke becomes she gives a lot of monologues, but this one is fucking perfect.
As she fucking should.
Right?
Give a lot of monologues. The show is named Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Let her have her monologues.
Let her speak. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for listening. If you like Slayer Fest 98, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can also support us on Patreon, where you can get access to Zachary Patton Garcia and I do sex talk videos called My Nudie Judy. Get access to all our bonus episodes. We covered Firefly. We're now covering Harley Quinn. And you get access to our Facebook group, monthly Patreon Zooms, and more. And if you want to follow us on social, we are at SlayerFestX98. If you want to follow me, I am at Ian X Carlos. Princess, where can everyone find you?
They can find me on Twitter at @WeeksPrincess. They can find me on YouTube under my username, Lena Pendulum. And if they want to see me being a little cutesy, they can follow me on Instagram at Princess_Weeks.
And Laz, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Laz Marquez. That's LazMarquez. And you can check out my work on my website at www.lazmarquez.com.
And Dana, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at Dana Piccoli, that's 2 C's 1 L on Twitter and Instagram. And I've been on a little bit of a hiatus for Queer Media Matters for the summer, but that will be ramping up very soon into the fall.
Cool. And we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.